Welcome to The Next Chapter, a show about how to move your life forward and what comes next. I'm your host, Carey Pena, co-founder of the Center for Positive Media. Hi, everyone. I'm Carey Pena, and this is The Next Chapter. With me in studio, Risa Kostis, who's an entrepreneur and stylist, a woman we've been trying to get into the studio for some time. You're busy.
I know.
I love it. I have respect for that.
Thank goodness that I am. I'm not complaining about that one bit, and I'm so glad to be here.
I've just been compelled with your story. I follow along with you on social media, and I know you through your work as a stylist. And it's been interesting to watch you grow sort of in how you tell your story. And I've been wanting to get you in here because I think it's powerful. This podcast is all about the next chapter and that we all have the ability to turn the page and to take things that have happened through our lives, some of them hard things, and turn them into power. And you've done that. When you were 17, you were in a very, very tragic car accident. Can you talk first about that?
Yeah. I had just graduated high school, and we were just having a great fun day down at the lake and about a mile from my house. No substances involved or anything like that, just having a fun time. The driver did lose control of the wheel when he was going to drop me off at home, caught a soft shoulder, and the car spun around, and I went through a window and lacerated the right side of my cheek. And it was in that moment that I knew. His response was, "Oh no, your face," in some choice words. And I knew that things were not going to be the same. I was slated to go off to college and be a cheerleader and was going to be in front of a lot of people. My coach got to pick who sang the national anthem, so I was going to be doing that. And it was one of those moments where I knew I was in for a long haul in terms of what was ahead, post-care and surgery and all of the things that came with going through a window at 17.
When you're telling me the story right now, I can see on your face almost going back to that moment. And it's, even though it's been, many years, I can see the pain on your face thinking about that and knowing that your life is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. When you are that age, and this is 1999, and it was very taboo not to go the traditional route. And I think back about, it just brings up a lot about my journey and the things that I had to go through at a really young age. It's that time in your life where you should just be going off to school and thinking about the next 4 years and how you're going to have fun. You're finally getting freedom from things that happened in grade school, things that happened in junior high, things that happened in high school with the same group of kids for your whole life, things that happened under your household with your parents, and just finally that freedom. And I think for me, I felt like there is not going to be any freedom at this time. Like, I am going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. And it felt like just a big slap in the face, considering I was so ready to be free and fly free. And I had really big dreams for myself at that time.
You wanted to be a singer.
Mm-hmm.
You've posted about this, so I hope it's okay. And if I ask you anything that you're like, no, I don't want to do that. But you've posted photos of what you looked like. And for folks who are listening rather than watching, you're a very lovely, beautiful woman. But you had some disfigurement to deal with. And I wonder if you could describe the extent of your injuries.
Yes. So, like I said, my right cheek was lacerated from just underneath my eye to the very back of my jawline, and then also a scar on my neck, so an opening on my neck, which is where the glass lacerated. And when the car hit and I bounced to the right because I was sitting in the middle seat, unseatbelted, it was just not really a thing to be wearing seatbelts back then. When I bounced through the right window and back into the opposite side of the car, I thought from the impact that I had just hit forward, so that I had hit the headrest in front of me. Didn't realize that I was thrown in the car. And when I finally came to and was conscious, I picked my head up and I felt a gush from my cheek. Sorry, this is graphic. And I knew I could feel the cold air on my face. I knew that I needed to just put my hand up there. It was like instinct. And luckily I did, because I was able to hold a piece of my face in place and keep my hand on my face while I crawled out the window to get out of the car. And I kept it there. And thank goodness I did, because they were able to salvage that piece of my cheek and do the reconstructive surgery that night. So I was rushed in an ambulance to the nearest hospital, who didn't have a plastic surgeon on hand. And I'm from a very small town in Maine. So they ended up putting me in an ambulance and took me up to Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine. And I'll never forget Dr. Therese White. She was so kind and calming, and she ended up putting my face back together and doing the reconstructive surgery. And then after that, every year consecutively for the next 3 years, I had plastic surgery done on my scar, CO2 ablative and laser scar resurfacing. So they would go in and basically do a 3rd-degree burn on my face, open up the face again, and reposition the scar so it laid flatter, and tried to diminish the look of it 3 more times with a plastic surgeon in Boston. So it was a long road, and it was years of my life where I was just constantly in recovery and going back through and living the trauma of that night.
What did this do to your mental health?
Oh man, just like it was taboo not to go to a 4-year school at that time, it wasn't really talked about. And it was a little bit taboo to talk about your feelings and really dive deep with your emotions. And I think a lot of us were raised in the 80s and 90s to have tough skin, right? And we just kind of soared through things. We didn't really talk about them. And to go to therapy at the time it wasn't widely accepted, and it wasn't something that people really wanted to do. They were ashamed of it. And there were a couple of appointments that I went to post-surgery, but I didn't do the real work then. And I think I tried to sweep it under the rug when I went off to college, but it was really hard. And I think I didn't really know the extent of what it did to me mentally until about 1.5 years into school. And I started to suffer from memory loss and real effects of PTSD and neurological issues, depression. And that's when I realized, okay, this is not me. This is not who I grew up as. This is not my happy self. I'm known to laugh. I'm known to smile. I'm known to be outgoing. I was a cheerleader. I played sports. I wanted to be an actress. None of what I was experiencing was Risa. And I knew at that time I had to leave school, and I really needed to get help and dig deep and see what was going on.
What do you identify as the turning point for you? And I know that it's really important to you to talk about how, this horrific accident, you learn to sort of take at least the positive aspects from this to fuel your life and to help you in the success as an entrepreneur and all these beautiful things that you're doing. What do you look at and say, this was my turning point?
Mm-hmm. Well, the memory loss was really scary. I'll never forget being outside of a class. I was taking a public speaking class. I went to University of Maine in Orono, and I thought it was an hour earlier than it actually was, or later. And I was sitting outside of my classroom, and I was waiting for my fellow students to get there. I was like, I'm going to be early. We're doing a speech presentation. It's a group presentation. Like, I'm going to be early, because I could tell my brain was playing tricks on me. And I'll never forget sitting there and kind of looking at my watch and being like, what's going on? And then everyone files out of the classroom. Like, I didn't even realize class was actually going on. And my group came out and looked at me, and they were like, where were you? We had to cover for you. We're probably going to fail. I just felt this feeling like my face got red, my stomach, my pit in my stomach, was just so present. And I knew something is seriously going on if I think it's a completely different time than it was. And also my friends at school could notice that I wasn't myself. And they had a little intervention with me, and they were like, all right, you're depressed, you're crying, you're not going to class, or you're confused. You're not you. You need help. And so had it not been for the advocates around me, I was away from my parents. So the people who knew me the best and who were around when the accident happened weren't there to really know. But my friends did a great job of saying, we know you. This is not you. I had a friend from high school who was in school with me, luckily, and she really knew who I was before the accident. So find your people and hold them close.
Yeah, that's really important that you share that story.
Yeah.
It's so significant and even if it's just one person who says, I see you, you're not okay. What can I do to help? What you're illustrating there is that changed the course for you. You started getting help, and then you started really identifying your dreams. You're very stylish, so it only makes sense that you became a stylist.
Thank you.
Talk about the entrepreneurial journey that you're on and kind of where you're at today. And this is your next chapter.
This is my next chapter. And had it not been for my first chapter, I never would have ended up in this career path. So after leaving school, I knew I wanted to learn how to cover my scar. I was very adamant about that. And I'm a very self-taught person. Everything I've done in my life has been self-taught. So I ended up taking myself to cosmetology school because there weren't makeup tutorials and there was no YouTube existing back then. Man, that would have made things a lot easier. Totally. And you talk about the hard road.
We could have gone to the TikTok college.
Seriously, where was TikTok? But no, I'm so glad that I went through it the way that I did because there is something really special about being self-taught. I use it now in my career. I use it in everything that I do. I feel really proud. I wear it as my badge of honor. Like I know how to do this because I went through it and I taught myself and I came out on the other side. So going to cosmetology school and learning how to do hair, skin, and nails and really understanding the finished look was the catapult to my fashion career. And I ended up starting my first business when I was 21 and doing hair and makeup for weddings. And I did that out in San Francisco and got clients through a spa that I was working at. And it was such a cool entrance into the entrepreneurial space because I don't know. I just didn't know about people starting their own businesses back then. And I just kind of made it up. I was like, hi, I'm Risa and I do hair and makeup. Do you want to be my client? And I just kind of went out there and started networking. And I think, it led me to this overall goal of just wanting to help people. The basis of what I do isn't necessarily about the fashion. It is about helping the person. It's about helping them find their voice. It's about helping them feel like the best version of themselves. And it happens to be through getting dressed. But when I'm in their closet or I'm on set with them, I can look them in the eyes and give them the okay, just non-verbally, that like, I've been where you are. I've been scared. I've taken a risk with fashion. I've taken a risk in my life. Like there's so much of what happened to me in that first chapter that plays a huge role in what I do now.
When you tell this story, how proud are you of yourself? Because this is some hard stuff that you've gone through. And I think that you're using it to help others.
Mm-hmm. Without sounding like a crazy person in terms of how proud I am, because you are your own best advocate, right? And like I always talk about self-love. I recently did a post about, thanking myself for an engagement ring on Valentine's Day and saying like, love the one you're with. I mean, it has to start there. And I think I felt the support throughout this journey, but the support really came from within. I had to coach myself every single day and tell myself, there's something more for you. You're worthy. You will come out on the other side because you are a fighter. You've fought for everything in your life and you've succeeded in a lot of things in your life. So when I look back and look at what I've overcome, it took me a while to get there. Don't think that this happened overnight. I mean, I'm 42 now and I didn't really start doing the work on myself or understanding what boundaries were or understanding therapy in the real sense of the word, like really getting that help and somebody to talk to and to help talk you off the ledge sometimes, because my path has been completely non-traditional. And I look around me and I see other people doing things that society deems as the most, like in the highest regard. And, but when I think about what I have overcome and the amount of people that I've helped, I am so proud of myself.
You're standing in your power.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, you aren't familiar with your work, I mean, you have a big social media following, and you and I were discussing before we started the show that I follow along with you, and I noticed a shift in the way you're doing your social media. You're sort of pulling back the curtain and you're saying, this is me. And part of that is that you're, single, you're not married. I don't know all the details, but I know that one of the posts was about the fact that there was a lot of pressure about when are you getting married? When are you going to have kids? And you just now are like, look, this is me, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a dog mom. I'm happy. I'm a successful woman, and that's okay.
Yeah, you make a great point. Like, that is okay. And I think people are so interested, and I love that they're interested in my life because it has been very interesting. I mean, I love talking about it, and I love normalizing singlehood. I love normalizing like dog momhood. It's a lot of work. I mean, getting a second puppy was no joke. I always tell my friends with kids that I have such an appreciation for what they do. But I think it's important to also mention that I wanted to be a mom my whole life. It's not something that I necessarily chose to do. And I've had people or men say to me, well, you could have had kids. You know, you've had choices along the way. And it's like, well, yes, and it's not always that easy. I don't want to do it alone. I want to do it with somebody if I'm going to do it. I also chose to put my heart and soul into my business. And I see my clients as my little babies that I set out into the world, and I train them to dress themselves and to feel confident. And then I set them free like little butterflies. So it does feel like I get to be a mom in a sense. I'm an auntie and I love it. And I love all of my friends' kids, but I did want that. And I still am open to it.
You're 42. Did you not get the memo? That's the new 32?
I mean, listen, if there are any single men out there listening, no, I'm just kidding. But like, seriously, I think there's a lot of pressure around this certain age that you need to do it by. And as a woman, you're thinking, well, I could still do it, but there's also this factor and this factor. And I don't want to be 70 when my kids are walking down the high school graduation aisle. And, you know, there's all these things that you're thinking about. And you do make a choice, right? But I am somebody who does want it all. And I know I will have that in some capacity. I'm never closing the door on anything. And you're right, my social media is a safe space for me to let people know that whatever their journey might be, it's okay. And I am cheering you on no matter what.
If someone's listening to your story, watching or listening to this podcast and thinking, I love that she's owning all of her life, that she's standing in her power, and you know that you made a concerted effort to pay attention to your mental health. What advice do you give to people? Well, no matter what their journey is, what they're going through, what advice do you give them?
Learn how to set boundaries. Protect your peace. I was a people pleaser my whole life. I am a recovering people pleaser. And if you don't understand what boundaries are and that they can be kind and that you can still respect the people around you, but that it starts with yourself, then you won't have freedom of choice, freedom of space, freedom of being a big dreamer. I am a huge advocate of big dreaming. I say I live in a constant state of dream stasis. It's my own term. Nobody take it. But I constantly live in this space of accomplishing my big dreams. And if there aren't boundaries of the people around you, then those big dreams can be overshadowed. So make sure that you are really clear on your boundaries and who you're around and what you allow into your safe space. I would also say practice your healthiest habits. I did an experiment last year where I gave up alcohol as a health choice and as a mental health choice. And because I knew it wasn't serving me, and there's a lot of pressure around being a social drinker. And I knew that if I was going to get to the next level of what I wanted to accomplish in my life, that I needed to cut out the toxins. That meant people, that meant alcohol, that meant certain foods, that meant just anything that wasn't serving me that felt toxic in my life. And it was the best decision I have ever made. I have never been more clear. I've never been more sure of the things that I say to people and the things that I tell myself. I've never woken up every single day and felt so grateful. And I can say now it's been over a year and I don't know if I see myself going back. I'll give myself permission to just do what feels best in my life. So if you can cut the noise and cut the toxins, whatever that means for you, it doesn't have to be a substance. It can be a person. It can be a thing. It can be a food. It can be where you live. It can be anything. But cut the noise, cut the toxins. And then always practice mindful writing. I do a lot of writing. I dump everything onto a document, whether it be a journal, notes in my phone. I have notebooks from the early 90s, I think. And then I have even things from grade school that I've kept, but I've been writing my whole life and it's such a release. And I like to look back and say, this is what I was doing on this date and see how far I've come.
I hope you're going to write a book. Got all those
It's in
journals
process.
and all this good advice.
It's happening. It's happening.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
Well, I love everything that you're about. Thank you for honoring us by sharing your story and such a personal way. That really, it's hard, even though it happened when you were 17. I respect that is a hard story to share. And I want to thank you for sharing that. And, just as we close out, when people want to find out more about you, your styling, and also you have this great rescue kit. So please plug that because I have one and I love it.
Oh my gosh. Well, if it weren't for my styling career, I never would have launched that, right? There's all the dots end up connecting. So I do have a company called the Rescue Kit Company. We make fashion emergency kits and tools for everyone who gets dressed and specifically for brides. But look out, world, because we're going to go in a million directions. Just you wait. You can find us on Instagram at The Rescue Kit Co. And our website is therescuekitco.com. And then, of course, my styling site is risakostis.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Risa Kostis.
I love the rescue kit because I have a lot of fashion emergencies in my life. So
yes, we need to get you one. Yes.
Thank you so much, Risa. And I wish you the best of luck with everything that you're doing. And thanks to all of you for watching The Next Chapter. I'm Carey Pena.